more you release, the more life gives you. At first hearing, this sounds almost ridiculous, a cruel riddle whispered by some old sage. After all, isn't life supposed to reward effort, control, and holding on tightly to what you value? We're taught from childhood, don't let go of your toys, don't drop your guard, don't waste your opportunities, grip harder, plan better, lock it down. Yet nature, in its quiet, unshakable wisdom, keeps repeating a very different truth. The more you let slip from your grasp, the more abundance returns to you. Picture standing on the bank of a river at sunrise. The water moves without effort, bending around rocks and carrying fallen leaves toward the sea. It never clenches, never resists, never says, "I must hold on to this exact drop of water." And yet, by letting everything pass, it receives everything. Or look at autumn trees, surrendering their leaves one by one. To the eye, it looks like loss. Yet, in this very letting go, the tree ensures spring's return, making space for new buds to grow. Nature thrives not by clutching, but by releasing. And so the paradox begins to unfold. The act of letting go, which feels like defeat to the human mind, is, in truth, the doorway through which life continues to nourish itself. The tides retreat, not in abandonment, but in rhythm. The wave collapses on the shore, not to vanish, but to return again with fresh force. The more you let slip away, the more you are given back. But here is the question that unsettles us. What happens when we stop gripping so tightly? What happens when we stop strangling life with our need for control, for guarantees, for certainty? Could it be that all the tension, all the stress, all the endless planning and protecting are not signs of wisdom, but signs of fear? And could it be that real wisdom lies in loosening our hold? This is not just a mystical saying. It's an invitation, one that challenges every instinct our culture drills into us. We believe letting go will leave us empty-handed, but nature whispers otherwise. Release, and you will receive. Let fall, and you will rise. Trust the flow, and you will discover the strength of the current carrying you. The question, then, is whether we dare to test this paradox in our own lives, whether we dare to open our hands, to surrender even for a moment, and discover what life has been trying to give us all along. There's a story told of a farmer who once hired a helper to sort potatoes. The job seemed simple enough. Place the large ones in one basket, the medium ones in another, and the small ones in a third. The helper nodded, rolled up his sleeves, and got to work. But as the day wore on, his shoulders drooped, his forehead tightened, and his movements grew slower and slower. By evening, he finally threw down a potato in frustration and quit. The farmer, puzzled, asked, "Why are you leaving? The work isn't heavy." The helper shook his head. "It's not the weight, sir. It's the decisions. Every potato demands I choose, big, medium, or small. And after thousands of choices, I can't take it anymore." What wore him out wasn't lifting or carrying, but gripping every choice too tightly. He was exhausted not by labor, but by control. Now, this story might make you laugh. Who could be undone by something as harmless as potatoes? And yet, isn't that exactly what many of us do every single day? From the moment we wake up, we sort the potatoes of life. This email is urgent. This text can wait. This thought matters. This one must be solved. We try to weigh and categorize every detail, to control every outcome, to carry every possibility in our hands. And slowly, almost without noticing, the endless small choices begin to crush us. You may have felt this yourself. You go to bed exhausted, not from running marathons or lifting weights, but from the sheer strain of decision after decision. What should I wear? What should I eat? What should I do next? Will I succeed? Will I fail? Should I hold on or should I let go? Life becomes a conveyor belt of potatoes, and you, weary and worn, keep sorting. The tragedy is not that we make choices. Choice is a gift. The tragedy is that we try to control every single one, clutching each moment as if our survival depends on it. Just like the helper who thought he had to get it right for every potato, we think every small decision must be managed perfectly, every outcome secured. But the more we cling, the heavier life feels. This is why so many of us reach a point of collapse, not because life is impossible, but because we are holding it too tightly. The potatoes pile up, and we refuse to let them pass. And so the humble story of a farmer's helper reveals a larger truth. It is not the weight of life that breaks us, but the way we insist on gripping it. The story of the farmer's helper sorting potatoes is more than a curious little tale. It is a mirror held up to the way we live. The truth is, life rarely crushes us by sheer weight. What crushes us is our refusal to release. What wears us down is not the current itself, but our desperate thrashing against it. Think of a river. No river forces its way to the sea. It doesn't stand at the mountain top with a blueprint, calculating the perfect route, nor does it grip its waters to prevent them from slipping away. It simply flows, around rocks, through valleys, over falls, and yet, without ever forcing, it always arrives. Its strength lies not in control, but in trust. When we live in constant control, trying to sort every potato, manage every detail, anticipate every possible future, we drain ourselves of the very energy we are trying to preserve. The paradox of life is that the tighter we hold, the faster things slip through our fingers. Like sand clenched in a fist, the more pressure we apply, the more we lose. This is where nature becomes our teacher. The trees do not resist the wind, they bend with it. The tides do not curse their retreat, they know they will return. Seasons do not demand permanence, they embrace the rhythm of change. And yet, somehow, we humans, with all our intelligence, still try to dictate the script of life, as if grasping harder could rewrite the flow of the universe. Alan Watts once said that nature itself pries your fingers open. No matter how tightly you grip, no matter how fiercely you resist, life eventually loosens your hold. Time takes what you cling to, not out of cruelty, but because it must. Control is the grand illusion. We believe we have it, and yet every storm, every loss, every surprise reminds us otherwise. The question, then, is not whether life will demand release. It will. The question is whether we will learn to let go before life pries our fingers open for us. Because letting go is not weakness, it is alignment. It is remembering that the river flows without your control, and yet you are carried all the same. So when we feel the exhaustion of too many choices, too many demands, too much pressure, perhaps the wisdom is not in sorting faster, gripping harder, or planning better. Perhaps the wisdom is in allowing, in loosening our hold, in trusting that life has a way of flowing toward where it needs to go. For it is not in the gripping, but in the releasing, that we discover the strength of the current beneath us. At this point, the choice before us becomes clear. We can live in one of two ways. Path 1. Control. This is the path most of us are taught to walk. Grip tightly. Plan meticulously. Guard against uncertainty. On this path, life feels like a war. You against the world. Every problem is a potential threat. Every change a danger to be avoided. Anxiety becomes your companion because nothing ever feels safe enough. Burnout follows because no amount of control can prevent the unknown from breaking in. And worst of all, this path leaves you separated from others. When you try to control, you cannot trust. When you cannot trust, you cannot truly connect. Relationships become power struggles. Workplaces become hierarchies of fear, and your own mind becomes a battlefield. Path 2. Trust. This is the path less traveled, and yet it is the path nature itself walks every single day. Trust does not mean laziness or recklessness. It means cooperation. It means recognizing that you are not the master of life, but a participant in its rhythm. On this path, unexpected help arises. Opportunities appear that you could never have planned. Instead of exhausting yourself by pushing the river, you learn to swim with its current. Instead of sorting every potato until your mind collapses, you learn to let some pass. Trust brings not only peace, but alignment with a greater intelligence than your own. Think of it like two different forms of governance. The path of control is like a monarchy. One ruler, one absolute authority, demanding obedience from all. But this kind of rule always leads to rebellion. Life resists domination. On the other hand, the path of trust is like a democracy, or better yet, like a forest ecosystem. Every tree, every stream, every creature plays its part without one trying to dominate the rest. Shared power nourishes all things without dominating anything. The forest thrives precisely because no single element is in control. So too with your life. When you insist on being king, controlling every outcome, dictating every detail, you suffer constant rebellion from reality. But when you allow cooperation, when you share power with the flow of life, you discover harmony. The world becomes less of a battlefield and more of a dance. The lesson is simple, but not easy. Control isolates. Trust connects. Control exhausts. Trust renews. Control leaves you clenched, brittle, and afraid. Trust leaves you open, resilient, and alive. And perhaps the most important truth of all, the more you trust, the more life surprises you with gifts you could never have demanded. Even as we begin to see the wisdom of trust over control, another layer of truth appears, one that deepens the mystery rather than solves it. It is the principle of I don't know. At first, I don't know feels like weakness. From childhood, we're rewarded for having answers, for solving puzzles, for being certain. Uncertainty feels like failure. Yet if we look closer, I don't know is not a collapse of intelligence, but an opening of it. It is the recognition that life is infinitely larger than our small maps of it. Alan Watts often reminded us with simple metaphors. Light cannot shine on itself. A blade cannot cut itself. An eye cannot see itself. Why? Because certain things cannot be grasped by grasping. They are revealed only when we stop trying to capture them. In the same way, life reveals itself most fully, not when we demand answers, but when we surrender to mystery. Think of how many moments of beauty in your life came not from careful planning, but from surprise. A chance meeting that turned into friendship. A wrong turn that led to the perfect view. A failure that cracked you open to a new possibility. None of these could have been forced. They happened in the space of, I don't know. To live in this way is to embrace curiosity over control. Instead of saying, I know what I want and I must have it, you begin to say, what I really want is tied to what you want. And what you want? I don't know. Surprise me. Suddenly, life is no longer a rigid script, but a dance where each step is discovered as you move. This does not mean drifting aimlessly. It means learning to trust the intelligence of the whole. Just as a jazz musician doesn't control every note in advance, but listens, responds, and improvises, so too can you live in rhythm with what arises. The music is richer precisely because it is not pre-written. And so the principle of, I don't know, becomes a source of liberation. You are freed from the crushing burden of certainty, from the endless need to sort every potato, from the exhausting illusion that you must always be in charge. In not knowing, there is room for wonder. In not knowing, there is room for connection. In not knowing, there is life. To stand in mystery, to let go of answers, is not to be lost. It is to be found in the vastness of what you cannot control, but can still participate in. So here, we return to the paradox where we began. The more you release, the more life gives you. At first, it sounded impossible, even foolish. How could letting go bring abundance? Yet now, after following the current of these reflections, it begins to make sense. Life itself is a rhythm of release. The trees let go of their leaves. The ocean lets go of each wave. The body lets go of each breath. And in that letting go, renewal happens. The leaf's fall is what allows spring to return. The wave's collapse is what makes way for the next swell. The exhale is what makes room for the inhale. Without release, there is no return. Without surrender, there is no flow. What once looked like loss, we now see as generosity. Decay, endings, impermanence, they are not our enemies. They are our teachers. They show us that life is not a possession to be gripped, but a gift to be received again and again. Every moment dies into the next, not to punish us, but to refresh us. When we fight this truth, we suffer. We exhaust ourselves sorting potatoes, clutching sand, clinging to the illusion of control. But when we trust it, when we open our hands and let the river carry us, we discover that what is ours comes without strain. The help we need arrives without begging. The next step reveals itself without force. This is why letting go is not defeat. It is participation in something larger than yourself. It is remembering that the current existed long before you were born and will flow long after you are gone. You are not the master of the river, but neither are you separate from it. You are the river. And when you stop thrashing, when you stop clinging to the bank, you feel the strength of its current carrying you forward. So here is the invitation. Stop gripping so tightly. Let the potato roll past. Let the leaf fall. Let the tide go out. Because in each release, life is preparing a return. And when the return comes, you will be ready. Not frantic, not exhausted, not clenched, but open. You will have learned the art that holds all others, how to open your hands. So let the river carry you. Trust the tide. What is yours will arrive in its own season, and when it does, you will know the truth that nature has been whispering all along. The more you release, the more life gives you.